with most of the 11 games on the day significantly impacting the standings as we get to the end of the regular season. We had close games throughout the night, several games in overtime, and a couple shootouts. Welcome in to another episode of Locked On NHL Game Night.
When that final horn sounds, you know it's time for Locked On NHL Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. Prepare to experience game day reactions like never before, only on Locked On NHL Game Night. Your team every day.
A wild night indeed. Welcome into another edition of Locked On NHL Game Night. I'm Mike Asti, a digital journalist in the Pittsburgh market, most notably with Yard Barker, and I host the podcast Mike Drop that's played on Sirius XM, and I am joined once again by Alex Wiederspiel.
Yeah, I'm told we're pretty cool. We
are very, very cool.
What I hear. The internet's a wild place these days.
Shout out to who said we were cool.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it was AI. I think we got called cool by AI. That's my guess. I'm Alex Wiederspiel. I'm a digital journalist, and I write for Yard Barker about the NHL. Also, play-by-play who covers college sports and some high school sports as well. And I host a radio show, and that radio show is often about sports.
Often and about sports, and I'm often appearing on that show as well. So you get both of us in another medium if you so choose. But welcome in again to another edition of Locked On NHL Game Night, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 podcast network. And we are going to inch closer to the #1 postseason tournament, and to get there we need to finish out the playoff positioning and these final standings, and we are very, very close to doing that here in the final days of the season. We had some games that really make it like some teams locked up their spot. We have a playoff matchup now set, and some other teams feel like they're kind of dead and buried, even if they are still mathematically alive. And we are going to start there with the Columbus Blue Jackets stealing another game from the Detroit Red Wings. The Blue Jackets stay alive and seemingly bury Detroit in Detroit. And Hockey Town, probably not going to be Hockey Town come the end of spring and into the summer again for now the 10th straight year. Columbus tying the game in the final seconds, 17 seconds to be exact, breaking the hearts of Red Wing fans. You go to overtime, both teams have a chance, and Alex, the Red Wings kind of outplayed Columbus in that overtime session. That OT was probably the best period the Red Wings have played in a month. Not enough, though. They don't get the goal, and then Columbus wins it in the shootout. Gibson, not good enough. The Red Wings top-heavy again, but their top line, not enough. Columbus does enough to get this victory. Does this result say more about Columbus still being legit and still having a shot here and keeping their season alive, or more about the Red Wings, who once again squander another opportunity, and all these points that have been squandered now have them very much on the outside looking in?
I think the short answer is yes, to obviously to both of those.
Fair.
I would say it's probably says more about Detroit at this point than it does about Columbus. I didn't think Columbus played great in this game, but I did think they started to take over as it went along. I haven't looked at the chance numbers for today to see if they reflect the way I felt as I was watching it. But as regulation went on, I felt like Columbus was taking over more and more, and Detroit was really turtled in that final minute. And Columbus took full advantage, and man, former Michigan players just dominating. Now I'm looking at the numbers now, and Columbus was really good in the second period. I will say the advanced numbers don't like them as much in the third period. I know they got off to kind of a slow start that period, but I still thought. I didn't think Detroit looked amazing in the third. I guess if that
they haven't looked amazing in a while.
I know.
Yes.
I know. Here's I guess where I'm sort of at with this is that I think with Detroit, I think David Perron is sort of emblematic. So I'm going to reveal something. I tell people all the time, like, I know a lot about this league. I know a lot about the NHL. It's why I co-host this show.
Sure.
I completely missed that Detroit had traded for David Perron.
Who told you that they traded for?
And it was you, and you kept referencing him. And I was like, wait, Detroit traded for David?
Yeah, I was like, that's the only move they really made that was supposedly supposed to do something really.
Other than obviously Justin Falk, who had 2 goals tonight. But I thought Perron was.
Granted, you're trading a top pick for him.
Yeah. I thought Perron was emblematic of all their problems tonight. He scored 1 goal in absolutely meaningless garbage time this since being acquired. He is, in my opinion, he's just not really much of a 5-on-5 player anymore. I think he's done.
I mean, this was 5 years ago when they acquired him the first time. Like Yzerman has done this before.
But so like to me, like for that to be your only forward addition, and he took at least 1 bad penalty tonight that I saw. He might have taken 2 actually, and that's been an issue with Detroit. Like I am at a point where I'm trying to figure out what the psyche of this team is, where they're taking at least 1 bad penalty a game.
Yeah, and going from the Kane
bad penalty,
the Kane mental lapse that led to a power play goal for Minnesota to beat them after their incredible comeback, to then this game too. Bad penalties, lackadaisical play, poor effort at the beginning of games and beginning of periods. Then these crazy spurts at the end of periods that is just like too little too late. All of that together has led to another horrendous month of March for Detroit. They've been the worst team in the NHL, factually, in the last 5 years in the month of March. This will now be at least 3 years in a row where it looked like they were going to be a playoff team, certainly 2 of the last 3 years. And this year, more than any other, they were in a playoff spot for 104 days.
Wow.
And now they are very much not in a playoff spot. They cannot be mathematically eliminated in their next game, but I believe Saturday, which would be 2 games from now for Detroit, if they keep on losing, they can be. And again, you can talk about the GM, you can talk about Yzerman and all that, and if he had a different last name, he probably would have been fired years ago. But the effort hasn't been there. I will add, I guess, and I know we kind of agreed before we hit record, there was more of an effort in this game. It did appear like there was more of a tenacity, more of an effort, more of an aggressiveness in this game. And this game almost came off like maybe they're just not good enough of a team, whereas the games recently felt like they didn't care that much, which is crazy to say at this point in the year. But still, I mean, there were still bad penalties, and this group as a whole is very, very flawed. But this group as a whole had enough of a lead, has played teams with less talent than them as of late. Again, that Rangers game, that this team as a whole should be in the playoffs or should be higher up than they are based on where they were a month ago.
I'm not even sure at this point that they have less talent than the Rangers. I think they have like a couple of really high-end skill guys, but they are pretty weak down the middle. And like,
I mean, more veteran talent though. The Rangers team that's building for the future should not be beating them in this spot.
But Ben Sherratt, I thought, has been like a disaster this season, and he was a disaster tonight. One last thing on Detroit, they are in like all year I've been like hiding my head in the sand because I was like, this was my pick. I was Mr. Detroit. Like I had them finishing third, and I was like, oh man, I looked so good for like 6 months, and then here we are. I just want to note that while they're in deep doo-doo, but they do host Philadelphia. Not that I feel
they
much
beat them
about,
recently,
and not that I feel much about Detroit's mental acuity at the moment, their fortitude. They host Philadelphia, and if they can win that game in regulation, they get New Jersey next, who is cooked. They actually did get officially eliminated.
They're mathematically eliminated, right? We'll get to them. Yeah.
And they finished the season at Florida. The big concern will be whether or not they have the gumption to beat Tampa. They got to win out. They got to beat Philadelphia in regulation to do it.
Sure.
It's not over, but
if they would have won half the games in the last 2 weeks, they wouldn't have to win out, and they would probably at least be the second wild card. If not, they would be in Boston's spot. But yet they were in the
they were in the driver's seat.
And I'll preview it for them and promote it for them more on Locked On Red Wings, because I'm sure they're going to have a lot to talk about after this game. Again, the Red Wings blow it, and you got to say they blew it. Credit to Columbus to get the victory, but this was a game blown by Detroit, who scored early in this game, had the lead late, and once again could not hang on. And this is almost the roughest of all the March collapses for this franchise. 10 years in, this is literally the worst decade in history for one of the marquee franchises in the sport and the franchise with the most cups from an American franchise in league history. Moving on, though, a team that is now ahead of them, a team that is now over the line in a playoff spot, the Ottawa Senators, a 6-2 domination of the Tampa Bay Lightning. Tampa Bay has had these lapses recently. Obviously, they're going to get in. It's not too crazy of a deal for them. Corey Perry got a couple points. He's been an odd acquisition for them to bring him back after his run with Edmonton. Was with them years ago when they made a cup final, one of his many cup final losses. Can Ottawa actually make a run? We've been talking about how good they've been recently, very few regulation losses. Now they're going to be a playoff team, but can they actually do more than that and actually make a run in the postseason? And do you have any concern for Tampa Bay? They've had these weird losses recently, despite having such a great team and an overall great season.
Yeah, I'm not as bothered by this one. I mean, look, Tampa on the back end of a back-to-back played a really physical, tough game against Buffalo the night before.
Yeah.
And they were in this game in the third period. It was 3-2. The goal that made it 4-2, they challenged it because why not at that point? Lost the challenge. 13 seconds later, Ottawa scores on the power play that came as a result of the lost John Cooper challenge. I'm not concerned about Tampa because of Tampa. I'm concerned about Tampa because of what is behind them. It is now an exact three-way tie. Tampa does have a tiebreaker based on regulation wins and regulation and overtime wins more accurately. But
Sure.
with the exact number of games played, it is a three-way tie for first in that division right now between Tampa, Buffalo, and Montreal. So I am more concerned about who's coming behind them. As for Ottawa, yes, and I get that I am noted Carolina skeptic, but if Ottawa winds up playing Carolina, which is very likely, Ottawa has been able to beat Carolina this season. Carolina's goaltending was a mess tonight, as it has been for the last
They allow a lot of goals. They score a lot, but they allow a lot of goals.
Yeah, it has been a mess for a while now, and Linus Ullmark is working in the right direction. Ottawa's biggest issue all season has been goaltending. They have been one of the best possession teams in the NHL. Jake Sanderson is healthy. He was really good tonight.
Brady Tkachuk's had the best week of his life, really, going back from the Olympics to now. This is 4 assists in this game.
So yeah, I buy, and I'm going back. I'm not sure, has it ever happened that in this format specifically, which I believe started in 2014, where a team actually won a division crown they're not a part of? I don't think it's actually ever occurred. But I think Ottawa, if the matchup is Ottawa-Carolina, I think it's plausible that this could be the year it finally happens.
It could be, and we now will hear from our Locked On Senators host on another big win for the Senators, who, again, not only do they avoid a regulation loss, they get a big convincing victory to continue their mojo here towards the postseason.
Ottawa Senators' best players propelled them to an enormous 6-2 win over the Tampa Bay Lightning. I'm Ross Levitan from Locked On Senators, and it was career highs for Brady Tkachuk and Jake Sanderson. The two U.S. Olympic gold medalists both contributed huge. Jake Sanderson, his first ever multi-goal game in the NHL, while Brady Tkachuk had 4 assists for the first time in his career. You also had a goal and an assist for Tim Stützle. Great to see Fabian Zetterlund get off the schneid. And when Shane Pinto gets a point like he did on his empty net goal, the Sens win. They're now 90-17-10 all time when Pinto comes to get a point. You look at Linus Ullmark in net, very solid. He made 28 saves and a couple big ones before the Sens pulled away in the third period, where they scored 5 of their 6 goals. We'll break this all down on the postcast, and then it will be available wherever you get your podcasts. It's your team every day.
Senators are a fun team to watch, for sure. They are a fun team to watch, for sure. And we now will wrap things up here in our first segment with the Flyers picking up a 5-1 win over the Devils, who, as you mentioned earlier, they are mathematically now eliminated from playoff contention. But the Flyers certainly are not. Philadelphia has been red hot as of late. They've been stacking goals. They've been getting everything you would want from the offense to the defense, strangling teams when they get big leads. We've seen what happened around the NHL. It's not exactly a guarantee for Philly, but what do you make of the Flyers, and how are they doing this? We almost ask this every show, but how are they doing this? Because, again, 2 months ago, their fans wanted to fire Tocchet, and this season was going nowhere. And now, whether they get in or not, they have an entirely different mindset going into the offseason for sure.
Well, in much of this, the goaltending has been improved, but I will say to the Flyers' credit as a team, it only needed to improve a little bit, which I have been kind of surprised by. They've actually locked it down defensively in a way that I was not expecting, because we saw for large portions of this season, they did not look like they were capable.
This is old school Flyers hockey.
Right.
This is how they played back in the day when they were really, really good.
Now, New Jersey did control a lot of the sort of rate of play and possession tonight, and I still don't think that Philadelphia did a terrible job of shutting them down. I know the shot attempts were a little lopsided in the third period, but New Jersey playing from behind, and I think for Philadelphia at this point, I'm going to need more from them, but this is pretty classic Rick Tocchet, where they will not create a lot and they will try to be opportunistic, but they will lock down and they will make sure the best chances don't get on the board. The one thing I will note, if we do wind up getting the Battle of the Keystone State, which it sure looks like we are going to get, I think the Penguins are the better team. And I think Dan Muse is an excellent coach. But one thing we have seen, a trend we have seen in the playoffs the last couple of seasons, has been the old coach, the veteran coach, has kind of taken it to the young coach in a lot of these matchups. Sure. So I would not write off the Philadelphia Flyers if this is indeed the matchup.
It's going to be very, very interesting. Penguins Flyers is always interesting, always a fun series, no matter what the teams look like. Crosby one more time, though, against Philly in the postseason, Alex. He's not going to retire after this season, clearly, but you can't guarantee that matchup again. It's hard for me to imagine that Crosby, playing like he's been recently, if he's healthy enough, even how Malkin's playing, that the Penguins veterans cannot turn it on for one series against the team they hate the most. That's really kind of where I'm leaning here, and they have enough youth to circle around it too. I'm not saying the Penguins are going to make a cup run here, but it would be very surprising with how good they've been as of late to lose to Philly in the first round. But for the Flyers to even be there is incredible. And yes, the way they're playing, if they get up in those games, Pittsburgh might have some issues, and the Penguins' goaltending and defense is their issue as well, which maybe Philadelphia can beat up on. We're going to hear from our Locked On Flyers host and then circle around the rest of the NHL. Several more games left to go here again. Locked On NHL Game.
Russ Cohen here for the Locked On Flyers podcast. Flyers beat the New Jersey Devils 5-1. 2 goals from Trevor Zegras, 2 goals from Tyson Forster, a couple of assists for Matvei Michkov. Really good game. I think the Devils tried to play wide open hockey. I'm not sure why they did that, but the Flyers really made them pay. Dan Vladar had a great game because there were times in this game where the Devils could have come back or mounted a comeback, and he really stopped them cold. Really helped the penalty kill. The penalty kill was really good tonight against a very good Devils power play. So big win. Catch the podcast.
A big win indeed, as once again, the Philadelphia Flyers 5-1 over New Jersey to eliminate the Devils and continue to stay red hot, now 92 points on the year for Philadelphia. And when we return, we have more overtime. We have more teams blowing games and more impactful movement in the standings. Again, keep it here on Locked On NHL Game Night. Back with you, Locked On NHL Game Night, and the NBA playoffs are here, or they're almost here, where every possession matters, every matchup is magnified, and every game can swing a series. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a great way to get in on the action. Here's what I like about it. You can bet just $5 and get $200. You can bet $50 in bonus money and get more money back as well. The app makes it easy to follow. The app makes it easy to bet, and the app makes it easy to follow the trends and the matchups all in one place, especially during the playoffs when the action continues night after night. And it all happens in the NBA just weeks away from that postseason getting underway. It just makes the entire playoff experience more engaging from start to finish. Once again, head to FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel, play your game. Back with you, Mike Asti, Alex Wiederspiel here, Locked On NHL Game Night. One of those overtime matchups. The Carolina Hurricanes, 6-5. We alluded to it earlier. Brandon Bussey, rough, allowed a lot of goals, a wacky game. The Bruins, I'm sure, wish they could have this one back. they do fall. Granted, get the point in overtime, and these are two teams that are going to be in the playoffs that are gearing up for that. Boston certainly looks secure now, but a big win for Carolina. And as you mentioned, I guess I will lead you in with this. Your concern for Carolina in net, I imagine, still exists despite this big win.
Did not change after this game. No, definitely not. And listen, like this, two things. One, this could, I mean, again, we're still trying to figure out who's going to actually win the Eastern Conference. Could very well be Carolina. This could be a theoretical matchup. I'm, Boston's probably going to get wild card 1 at this point. So it's more likely if Carolina finishes in the second spot in the conference, but we'll see. Here's my thing is, like, I want to believe in the Carolina Hurricanes because there are so many players that I really like as players, right? But I see two big issues. They have still never addressed the second line center issue. The other issue that really bugs me is that the last 2 years they swung big at the trade deadline. And again, I still don't think they handled the Mikko Rantanen situation the right way, but whatever. Okay, they get a player out of it in Logan Stankoven, but he was the third best player of all the players who moved in that trade. But I think the biggest issue of all is that you don't address the goaltender situation at the deadline. And I get it. Listen, this is a crummy,
they're bought in though with Bussy.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to address it and bring in somebody better than him because he's their guy.
Not been good. He is really,
I
get it. He was red hot and his record looks great, but his numbers, and again, you look at, you go, 29, 6 and 1. Yeah, that is really good. I'm not saying it's not. His numbers since the Olympic break though are bad.
100%. He's been rougher.
855 save percentage, and that number is going to go down.
And it's a lot of hockey for him to play at this age. The more hockey he plays, the worse he's getting.
Yeah,
that's a fact.
He has never played this much NHL hockey before. So I just don't know who Carolina is planning on relying on in net in the first round. So I don't know.
I would imagine it's him. I would imagine it's him. And to be
guess.
honest with you, Alex Anderson's not played well either.
No, 870. So a little better. Not much.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, if you might as well rely on the guy that won you more games if they're both going to produce similar numbers and both have the issues. To their credit, they have managed to score a lot of goals, which is how they won a lot of those games when he had a sub 900 save percentage. Pavel Zacha scores and ties it for Boston. They end up losing nonetheless. Greeke gets a hat trick for Boston. They end up losing nonetheless. They do get the 1 point in overtime. What are your thoughts on the Bruins as legit contenders? They fought so hard to secure themselves and certainly look like that first wild card team, but they have games like this that a team's leaky in net and they don't end up with the win.
Well, I'm really becoming a big fan of Pavel Zacha, and that's looking like Tom Fitzgerald just got fired, and of course that's looking like one of the worst trades that he made in his tenure, maybe giving up on Zacha a year too early. The other thing worth noting here, Morgan Geekie obviously has been kind of battling it with his goal scoring slump. He got hurt at the end of the third period. I'll be curious to see what the prognosis is for him. But I mean, look, Boston has been kind of plucky. Like they kind of play up to and down to their competition, and they've found a way to win more games, typically because they've gotten the better goaltending. Special teams has been kind of iffy this season. So if I think Boston is sort of your classic first round one and done, whoever they run into, they're probably going to struggle with. I just don't like the way they match up, but it is worth noting that they are the closest thing to having what's the word? Having cheat codes, right? David Pastrnak in the East is a cheat code. And Charlie McAvoy, one of the probably 5 or 6 best defensemen on the planet, and Jeremy Swayman has looked more like Jeremy Swayman this year. So can you say that I don't think they're going to get like dog walked out of the first round. I likely won't be picking them no matter who they play.
You can make an argument, Alex. Just the names you read there. We can go on and on. Their roster on paper should have a better record than they have. They're going to be a playoff team, it looks like, but they were said to be a disappointment a couple months ago, and you could argue when you look at them on paper, they should be better than they even are.
I think it was kind of a gut check, like in the middle of the season, we didn't really know what direction this was headed, and then
they have veterans,
they sort of stabilized. To me, the issue comes back to the same thing with Boston, is that it's down the middle. And again, Zacha's really good. Geekie hasn't necessarily been playing center. But they don't have a
I hear you.
true number one center. They're one of those teams that's kind of playing with multiple number twos.
Yeah.
Elias Lindholm at this point in his career, he's bounced back nicely, but he's definitely not a top line, your traditional top line center at this point in his career. So I think that's probably why they're not just like a little bit better, because the elite talent is there, but it's not necessarily there down the middle.
100%. Alex Wiederspiel, Mike Asti here, Locked On NHL Game Night. We are going to check in with our Locked On Carolina Hurricanes hosts, since they did win, and move along through the rest of the East and the West, because the West came to play tonight as well.
The Carolina Hurricanes are Metro Division champions. That is their 4th division title in the last 6 seasons, after getting the 1 point to force overtime to clinch. They also get the 2 points with the win, thanks to Jacob Slavin's first of the season. More milestones on the night. Jackson Blake gets 50 points. Braden Bussey gets his 30th win. Jordan Stahl, his 300th assist as a Carolina Hurricane. 50, 22, and 6 on the season. You know, what a year it's been for the Hurricanes, and now they're one game closer to even going for the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. But what a massive win to clinch the division. That's one more milestone taken care of. That's one more benchmark done before the playoffs. Now it's time to go for the number 1 spot in the East. But what a win in dramatic fashion against the Bruins to get the job done at the last regular season home game of the season. Now it's a 4-game road trip, but hey, Metro Division champs, 4 titles in 6 seasons. If the Hurricanes are one thing, it's consistent.
They are. And I think part of why you're saying you kind of want to root for them this year, they've been knocking on the door. Yeah, they won a cup 20 years ago, but since then it went.
This should be the year.
They went through a rough period. They got back in and they couldn't deal with Florida. They had other teams that were just better than them. They maybe would be a surprise. This should be the year now, especially with Florida not around. But yet it does appear they do have some issues there. And for a little aside, look this up. It's interesting. The great career Jordan Stahl has had, and he's had a really solid career. His best scoring season still, his rookie year with the Penguins.
Yeah.
As insane as that is.
Yeah.
He's an impactful player through his whole career. But that rookie year with the Penguins, he's never got back to that level again. Moving through the Eastern Conference, though, before we get to the West, the Montreal Canadiens picked up a victory over the Florida Panthers. The Panthers are playing young. The Panthers are resting their veterans who are on those cup teams. The Panthers are done. But Montreal gets this victory. Montreal ends up doing enough to get this win at the end and pulling it out at the end. Thoughts on Montreal, especially what they got from Dobes and net? And I know I will put it out there that you, our colleague here at Locked On NHL Game Night, thinks they are a dark horse team that could make a run all through the Eastern Conference. How high or low are you on the Canadiens?
I have been lower on the Canadiens than most, but I am starting to believe for a couple of reasons. So I think, I've been working on a piece for Yard Barker that's going to come out tomorrow, where I kind of look at what would the NHL be like if it operated like the NCAA tournament in basketball, of course, in hockey as well. But basically,
a committee would love them.
Yeah,
assuming there's anyone on Canada.
So not only would a committee love them, but there are a lot of reasons why a committee would love them. Top 10 team and 5-on-5 goal differential. The expected goals numbers don't look as good, but they are so talented. They tend to outscore their problems. The power play's been really good this season. So they are growing on me. And part of that is also because their team speed is really tough to handle. And I think that's going to be a matchup problem for a team like Tampa Bay, who is no longer got the level of speed that they still play fast, but they don't have the same level of foot speed that they once had. So that's fair. It's hard for me to come off of my prediction of Tampa. And I already seem to have one darling in Buffalo in my heart already. So I don't know if I can make room for another, especially one that I kind of publicly doubted as much as I did with Montreal. But I'm more willing to buy into where they are at this point. I think they have definitely impressed me. I guess my concern is that only so many teams can get out of the first round, right? And they're likely going to wind up playing because again, the format, I'm just getting around it. The format stinks. They're going to play either Tampa or Buffalo in the first round. And I would take either of those teams over them. Now, if they win the division, which they could very much do, that's a different story. So then
yeah,
we can
they
talk.
are a team, and Shu kind of convinced me a few shows ago because I've been hot and cold to them most of the year. If they can get out of the first round, look out. They have the depth. Then I could see them making a run and getting in the conference final. Who knows if they're in the cup final, and nobody would have thought that entering the year. It's unlikely they're getting out of that first round, though, because, yes, based on this format, they're going to have a very, very tough road to go. They're kind of the equivalent of what Minnesota is out in the West. And speaking of the West and a team that Minnesota is going to have to worry about in the postseason, the Dallas Stars get a 4-3 victory in overtime over the Calgary Flames, who've been very competitive as of late, but of course their season is going nowhere, and they're looking to the draft in the summer. Wyatt Johnson ends up with the power play game winner in overtime.
It was sick, too. That was a sick goal.
You need to watch the video. It was sick. The highlights are all over social media. Aside from the sick goal, though, he bails the team out and gives them a victory in a game that if they would have lost, they'd, be worrying about home ice against Minnesota, who got a victory that we'll get to later in the show. They're going to play the Wild in that first round. That is set. Who has home ice has not yet been finalized. But speaking of concern or being high on a team, any concern about Dallas? They've been up and down as of late, despite most of the year being an elite team that everybody thought, if not Colorado, it would be them.
Yeah, so it's funny you asked that question. I will just say the one thing on Dallas that's been funny for me is that I feel like I'm lower on them than most. And then when I check back and kind of look at my power rankings, I still somehow find them always around that 4, 5, 6 spot. So how low could I really be on the Dallas Stars? I have them generally where everybody else is. I think what I'm struggling with Dallas is that even if they wind up making it out of the first round, I'm not convinced that they've got the goods to, even though they have the history of taking down Colorado. I feel like Colorado has kind of got their number a little bit more this year. Yeah. Like the Avalanche loaded up. So I guess
Ottinger's not been as good.
In a vacuum as a team, I'm perfectly fine with the Dallas Stars and believe they are an excellent team and one of the 5 or 6 best in the NHL. I you know what it is, and again, I hate to go back to this playoff format. This has sapped me of my interest in Dallas because I just know that there is a 50-50 chance they are not making it out of the first round. Yeah. And so that makes it so much harder for me to feel interest in the Dallas Stars. So again, check out Yardbarker tomorrow, folks. I'm going to fix the NHL playoff system in a way nobody else has tried to do.
Either you're going to fix it or you're going to enter the same issue that college basketball faces where you have programs who have better years not being put in the tournament so blue bloods can get in, for example, because as I texted you when I saw you working on that piece, the Detroit Red Wings, who have been the collapse of March, the committee would get them in. If we're just talking about getting a team in because we want them there and they have history and cachet, Detroit would not have anything to worry about if it was a pure on committee situation. But here we're actually playing to get in. It's been a bigger issue. But yeah, Dallas is going to likely be fine, but they are the most underrated North American pro franchise for me across sports the last 25 years. They've been knocking on the door since that 99 Cup to get another one. And it does appear the format usually bites them. They maybe have the biggest gripe of that format of any franchise in recent years. Maybe Minnesota has the other gripe, and we'll get to them later on. Speaking of Colorado, though, who have been the toast of the Western Conference all year and of the NHL, we talked on Sunday, Alex, about how watch out, St. Louis. You got that win. Colorado's going to get some revenge a couple nights later. They just have to just show that they're the better team and that they're going to maybe be that cup champion this year. That's what they're playing
exerting
for.
Their dominance.
They need to exert their dominance. Exactly. And that's exactly what they did in this game.
Yeah, winning the division. And I think that says it all, right? Like there was no part of me. Colorado is such a mentally focused team. They're healthy right now that the idea of the lapse they had at the end of that St. Louis game.
Brush your shoulders off, we'll take you down on Tuesday.
Like I think Nathan McKinnon probably emptied out all of the vending machines and threw everything away and said, nothing for you guys until after this game. Nothing for you guys. No ketchup with your turkey burgers, and also
no sprinkles on the ice cream.
Yeah. Oh, I don't think he ever, excuse me, apologies. I don't think he ever would allow sprinkles on the ice cream during the regular season anyway.
Well,
but point being though is that I can't help but think that this is why Colorado is as dominant as they are, because you have to hate like it is a cliche, but I've had coaches say this to me before across a myriad of sports. You have to actually hate losing more than you like winning. And boy, does this Colorado team, they absolutely hate losing. They take it personally, and we saw the results tonight.
Yeah, and that's a line actually I heard from Darren McCarty, Red Wing legend, 4-time Cup champion. He said this the other day, that my teams hated to lose more than we like to win. He was criticizing more than just Detroit. He thinks a lot of these teams like to win more than they hate to lose. Colorado hates to lose more than they even like to win, and that was evident in this. They just had to just do away with St. Louis. They just had to beat St. Louis in this game. Obviously, it's not a must-win game for the standings for them. They're fine, but just for themselves and their wherewithal, they had to win this, and they had to win it convincingly. And they did. And
the score did St. Louis some favors tonight.
The score did St. Louis some favors for sure. Colorado and McKinnon did not score in this, but McKinnon and the Avalanche, certainly the better team. And they should have won the game on Sunday as well. They squandered that game when that should have been a victory. So they should even have more points overall. When we return, though, we have a few more games left on the docket, and a couple teams exert themselves. They kind of pump themselves up and push their chests out. And another team that's been elite the last couple of years blows another game and squanders another chance at 2 points. Yes, I'm talking about the Edmonton Oilers.
Ay, vey. Ay, ay, ay.
So spring is a natural reset point, and if there's one thing that can quietly cost businesses money, it's messy communication. We have great communication here, of course, on Locked On NHL Game Night, but you want to make sure that you don't have messy communication. You don't want any missed calls, scattered texts, no clear threads throughout those text messages or conversation. And today's episode is brought to you by Quo. That's spelled Quo, the smarter way to run your business communications. Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2 with over 3,000 reviews, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses. It lets your entire team share one business number so you never miss a call, text, or opportunity. That's the part I love the most about Quo. Make this season the season of no missed opportunity and no customer slipping away. Try Quo free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/lockedonnhl. That's quo.com/lockedonnhl. Finishing things up here, Mike Asti, Alex Wiederspiel, Locked On NHL Game Night. And as I alluded to there, the Edmonton Oilers blow it again. And we are going to give the first word here to our host of Locked On Oilers because when I was listening to his clip, he said it best for sure. They had a lead throughout this game and don't end up winning this game.
One of their sloppier games, as much as the conversation going into Tuesday night's game against the Utah Mammoth was about the Oilers' improved defense. Their massively improved defense in terms of preventing high danger chances against and really giving their goalies, whether it be Connor Ingram or Tristan Jarry, a good opportunity to help the team win. Tonight was nothing of the sort. A very clunky back and forth game. Lots of scoring chances for both teams, though ultimately Utah was able to ride out the energy they had built up coming back from multiple goal deficits multiple times in this game, really putting pressure on the Oilers and ultimately forcing a penalty in overtime on a nice play by Logan Cooley where he outworks Matt Savoy on a 50-50. Savoy takes him down. Utah wins the faceoff. They score right away. The Oilers do pick up the loser point, which helps in the incredibly tight Pacific Division race, but that's a game they should have had against a Utah team they very well might see in the first round of the playoffs.
A game they should have had seems like the phrase for the Edmonton Oilers of this season. McDavid on the stat sheet, nothing new there. Obviously, Draisaitl still out. He mentioned Tristan Jarry. He was in net, and he was not good once again. And the Oilers blew multiple one-goal leads in this game. Yes, they get the loser point, but when you're in the Cup final back-to-back years and you don't win a Stanley Cup and you have one of the greatest players in league history, the greatest player in the game today, and a player that's been the bridesmaid and never the bride, yet putting all those points up on an historic pace, nothing matters outside of getting victories when you need them. What do you make of this Oilers team? Because as Nick put it, they started out strong. They went through a funk. Draisaitl started getting mad. He then got hurt. Recently, they've actually been playing better and feeling like they needed the kick in the pants of maybe Draisaitl getting hurt to motivate them to at least get in and then make a run once they're there. But then they do this again.
The better defensive play, while I acknowledge it, I've seen it, it is not foolproof. That's probably the big thing that we need to take away from tonight. It is not foolproof. They are still going to have issues because you can patch certain things up, but you can't hide everything. The big thing for me too is they're still playing without Draisaitl, so it's hard to know what to gauge from all of this.
Assuming he's back in the playoffs, which is not a guarantee, but assuming
I thought this was a bad matchup for Utah. And again, if Draisaitl is back and he's not dealing with any rust, which I feel like if anyone can kind of shake off rust quickly, it's going to be Leon Draisaitl. Right. I guess the kind of the thought that I'm having is they should still match up with a Utah team that has almost no playoff experience among their core. They should match up with them fine. But I am definitely drawing a little pause tonight. I don't know if you saw this stat on the broadcast, but I believe it was in their last 38 games, scoring 3 goals in the first period. The Oilers were 37-0-1. Make that 37-0-2.
Yeah, nuts. And obviously Ingram has to be in net for them to have a chance in the postseason. Tristan Jarry has almost been a guaranteed loss.
Unplayable,
but you can't just play Ingram every night because, as Knobloch said a week or so ago, we need to be able to give him rest too. Usually to have a deep run through the playoffs, you need multiple goaltenders. No goaltender goes through the entire thing without ever taking a game off. But yeah, Jarry's been a guaranteed loss since coming over. And oddly enough, it appeared like despite playing poorly again, they were going to win this for him. And yet, lose it anyway.
Well, and I will say there are ways
25 of 31, by the way, for Jarry.
There are ways to get guys like time off. And usually I think of Henrik Lundqvist, like the only game that guy would ever miss was if he was having a bad game or if the Rangers were having a bad game.
We're not talking about Lundqvist.
Like my point is, I know.
Yeah.
My point is though, is that in the Eastern Conference Finals against Montreal way back when, going more than a decade back, the game 5 was a clinching game for the Rangers, and they got down early. They pulled Lundqvist because they knew they were going to want him fresh for game 6. That's a classic way to get guys some extra time. And when you have a high caliber goalie, you can start them every night. I agree with you in the sense that I don't think you can run Connor Ingram.
They don't have a high caliber goaltender,
yeah, you
right?
Can't run Connor Ingram every night of the playoffs.
Yeah,
it's a problem. It's a real problem. I don't know. I don't know, man. Edmonton could easily find their way. Here's the thing. So I will say this.
No, McDavid's going to need 50-plus points through 4 rounds.
Which he might do.
Right. He got 40-plus a couple seasons ago. Granted, still lost in Game 7. He's up there top 5 point totals all time through a playoff run. He can do it, but that needs to happen.
Yeah. One last thought
this
on
year
Edmonton.
More than in the past.
I picked two final thoughts. One on Edmonton, one on Utah. Real quick on Edmonton, I picked them to go to the Western Conference Finals, and I thought it was going to be a tight 7-game series with Colorado because I believed that Edmonton was not going to go down easy. If they do go to the Western Conference Finals, it will be because the Pacific Division is ridiculous, and Colorado will dispatch them.
Yeah, and both of those two things could be the case, and from what we've seen most of the year. Now, moving on to a team that looks legit, but they're going to have a tough road in the first round. They have that matchup set with the Dallas Stars. They knew it for a while. It is going to be the case. They're jockeying still for home ice as the Minnesota Wild with a 5-2 win over Seattle, and the Kraken appear now to totally be toast. But Minnesota, though, has now won 4 games in a row. And Alex, we've had a conversation for weeks on end, and Bill Guerin even was saying this publicly. Okay, we're really, really good. Dallas and Colorado have more points. We're likely going to have to go in the first round and be on the road. That's not fair for the format. Don't tell these players that. They've been winning ever since the comments. Now are red hot, picking their game up here. And they're looking like a team from what we've seen of Dallas as of late that Minnesota could win that series. And then once they get out of that first round, you don't know.
Yeah, I'm a bigger believer in Minnesota. There are a lot of good numbers, and they've played pretty well against top competition this year. I was looking through some of the records against like
Right, they do pick
the
it up
other
against top
yeah,
competition.
against the other like top 10 teams by points percentage. And I think they were number 2 in the NHL when I was doing the research earlier. So I there are a lot of reasons to like Minnesota. I would prefer them to be home. I think that's and I get that like
Sure.
it's not the end of the world.
No.
But if at day's end, if you're gonna have a game 7, you'd prefer them to be in their own beds, no travel, and you'd like the last change for the coach. That would be my preference.
Especially because you're facing a Dallas team that is a veteran franchise with veteran players that has been there and done it before for years on end, and you are a franchise that has not had a deep run in over 20 years, even though there are some players on this team that, of course, had, and Bill Guerin knows.
Haven't won a playoff series in 11 or 12 years. The last time they won a playoff series.
So the world is against you.
McKinnon
The odds are against
rookie,
you.
By the way.
Right. Like, this is the time for them, but you want all the advantages you can get. Running through now the rest here in sort of a rapid fire. The Predators dominate the Ducks on the scoreboard 5-0 and getting a win to stay very much alive. But Alex, for anyone who watched the game, Anaheim shot the lights out. They were firing shots in that game, doubling up Nashville shots on net, and yet gets blanked. And Nashville gets a dominating victory as what the score shows you. Your thoughts on that performance? A very odd game based on what the stat sheet will tell you, but a big win for the Predators.
Well, I thought Anaheim's first period was really good. They didn't score on it. And obviously when you're missing Cutter Gauthier, that's going to be part of the issue with finishing. But this is the story of play. This was a playoff game, right? This was a playoff game. And this is the story of the playoffs is if you do not finish when you play a better period, do not expect that to immediately carry over to the next period. The number of times that I have watched the Carolina Hurricanes dominate a period and not be ahead, and then the next period, it falls apart for them. This is why you have to finish when you get the opportunity, because what wound up happening is once Nashville got a lead, they are a reasonably decent defensive team, but Anaheim was really pressing, and Nashville basically was able to dunk on them a couple of times because, one, the Ducks weren't really back checking all that well in this game, and two, where Nashville particularly had it easy, Anaheim was pressing for offense once they got behind, and it allowed Nashville some odd man rushes, and it gave them the highest danger, highest quality chances. One last note on the Anaheim Ducks. I would describe myself as concerned. So this ties into my other point about Utah. Last night I said Utah would be my snub if we did a committee style. I'm starting to think it might actually be Anaheim. They are probably still going to get in, but holy hell, they have been bad lately. And tonight
they have been
defensively was an issue.
But I will defend if we were going to do a college committee thing and say that overall body of work, they've done more. Overall body of work. It's been my pet peeve with college sports, namely college football and the CFP. They don't look at overall body of work enough. The whole season counts, Alex Wiederspiel. If you're looking at overall body of work, I think Anaheim has done more. As of late, no, but as of late gets in your brain more, but overall season should count more. But we're not doing that. We're doing off the standings, and Anaheim had a really, really rough loss. And if you're comparing it to a playoff game, you know what that felt like? That felt like a very inexperienced team that is very much on upset alert and very much vulnerable to lose to anybody because they're just inexperienced at the playoffs and at this time of year and doing it. The coach is not. Obviously, John Carlson is not. But outside of them, a very inexperienced team. They looked inexperienced in this game, facing a veteran team with Stamkos, Forsberg, etc., who have been there and done it before.
One quick note before we move on. It is also worth noting that they are extremely young, and this is you forget that there are like serious, like overly two teams that are too old and teams that are too young struggle at the end of seasons for obviously the same reason, but for different reasons. For veteran teams, it's because they have too much wear and tear. For young teams, it's because they're not accustomed to playing this much hockey at the highest level. So I'm not saying that is maybe it's 5% of the reason, but 5%, the margins matter right now.
We are going to wrap things up with the Golden Knights, a 2-1 victory over the Canucks. And Alex, it should have been more. It could have been more. Vegas doesn't put up more goals against anybody, really. But The Vancouver Canucks had 11 shots on net in this game. 11 shots on net in this game. McNabb and Cole Smith get the goals for Vegas.
Yeah, I don't know what else to say about this one. If we had more time, I'd love
That's
to
why
get
the floor is yours.
Yeah, if we had more time, I'd love to get into some torts related stuff, but we can save it for another show. Vancouver is having a horrendous season. The key for Vegas at this point is, listen, I don't know what to make of what's going to happen here in the coming weeks with Vegas.
Yeah, Tort is in kind of a tryout situation.
Right.
Obviously, he has the resume. Who knows about this team? But he loves it this way, though. This is what he did back in the day, that you get enough of a lead. You only have a 1-goal lead here, and you hang on for dear life. That's what happened here.
I don't even think they were hanging on for dear life in this one.
Well, I guess what I was about to say is when your opponent has 11 shots on net, it shouldn't even be an issue. And yes, the Vancouver Canucks had 11 shots on net. Vancouver was like, I don't want to win. Please score again to make this easier. And yet it was not. But yeah, Tortorella, he's fine in small doses, which is the case here. But I will say, I don't think Vegas has looked any different since he's been hired, and we'll see if they finish looking any different, because obviously the goal is to finish looking different, or else you don't make a move from an experienced coach to another. That'll do it for this edition of Locked On NHL Game Night. A lot of games, a longer show. We had a lot to get through. A lot happened on this random Tuesday night. Usually Tuesday, not really that rocking. It was in the NHL on this edition of the show, and check in those standings because they look a lot different than they did at the beginning of the day.